following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WZWA Network and our review show here of WrestleMania 38, Night 1. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia and Fury. A joy to be with you all once again. And of course, I have to introduce my co-host here, the one and only Jooseyboy, Daniel Johnston. What's going on, DJ?
Oh, not a lot, my friend. What the fuck is going on, everyone out there in YouTube land, internet land, as it were? Wow, what a show. What a big weekend it is for pro wrestling.
Absolutely, bro. And what a big moment right here for the reviews on the WZWA Network, because we have a very special guest. That's right. Everyone out there, ladies and gentlemen, this is a special moment for us because we get to rip apart and talk about the one and only WrestleMania with the one and only IPW hardcore legend, the one, the only former WCW superstar. It is Jet Jaguar. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Thanks again for the wonderful introduction. Nice to meet you guys. It was a crazy night of wrestling. It's gonna be fun to get into with you guys.
Yes, excellent, bro. It's great to have you on because, you know, we get to have expertise from somebody that was actually in the business, unlike myself and you, Jooseyboy. So looking forward to your expertise, bro. I don't think you watched the pre-show, did you, Jooseyboy?
No, I did not.
Okay. Jet Jaguar, did you watch the pre-show?
I flipped on thinking it was going to be earlier than it was and realized it was 2 hours and was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? They're going to run this for 2 hours. And they did run it for 2 hours. So not really. I came back to it.
I skimmed through it and I couldn't believe, and I don't want to go on too long of a rant here, but I couldn't believe the pre-show didn't even have a match on it. It's just
that's what I thought.
This damn pre-show panel where they're just talking about what's going to happen. And it makes me wonder why they had the Andre the Giant Battle Royal on SmackDown the day before when you have a hour plus of pre-show there to give these people a chance to wrestle in front of supposedly 77,000 people. I just don't understand it, guys.
One of the things I was hoping on that one is, God, I hope those people that wrestled on the SmackDown show, I hope they actually get WrestleMania pay, because it's a huge payday for the guys. And if they have all these hours of pre-show and they bump them, I just hope they're getting WrestleMania pay for that, because that's really kind of beat.
Yeah. I have to agree with that. I think I also want to mention a similar thing. The Andre Battle Royal, that could have been on this pre-show, and you know, I don't see why they couldn't have done something to do with the Hall of Fame on the pre-show as well. So at least it would have actually been taking place in the arena in front of all those people, in front of that big crowd. But I don't know why they do some of the things they do these days.
They could have had an Intercontinental title match, a US title match. Those two championships aren't being represented on the show, so, and not tomorrow either. So whatever. You know, that WWE do lots of things that we never understand. I was down with the beginning of the show with the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Jooseyboy, you were annoyed by it. I don't understand why, bro. I don't know what problem you have with extremely good-looking women.
It's not that I have a problem with extremely good-looking women, or even the fact that it's a bit of pageantry to the proceedings. It's just that I feel like the show goes, it's now split into 2 nights, right? And even though this is night 1 of 2, there's still only fucking 6 matches on it, and it's still going to go for 4 hours. Yet somehow they have all this time, they can stuff all this extra shit on there. And, you know, we have at least one match, that being the New Day's tag team title match against Sheamus and Rich Holland, that got bumped from this card, yet there was time for all that other crap that they stuck on there. You know, that's what bothers me. Not the cheerleaders. The cheerleaders themselves were, I mean, come on, fabulous. But
you weren't to know that match was bumped at that point and you were complaining about it, okay? I just want everyone out there to know that Jooseyboy hates the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, so.
No, you're right. I'll be honest. I actually do fucking hate them.
All right, let's get into the actual show, guys. The first matchup on the show was the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match. Everyone out there knows that I don't agree with having two tag titles on both brands. I think there should just be one tag title, but that's not really important right now. The Usos defending the championships. I don't know how many times they've won the belts at this point. It seems like they've been a tag team for 25 years at this point. They defend against Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. I'm going to throw this to our very, very special guest here, the one and only Jet Jaguar. What did you think of the opening contest?
Before I mention that, I just want to say how great it was, like the opening of the show, and to see 77,000 people after the whole COVID thing, and the energy in that place was like, holy cow! Like it was how it's supposed to be, and it had that energy and excitement, and that we haven't seen yet. But since the whole COVID thing, it was very refreshing to see that energy in the crowd. As far as the match, I do tend to agree with you, Carl, on that one. Too many titles as far as the brands, but for what it was a pretty decent match. The Rick Boogs ending spot with his knee, that looked kind of scary. I don't know if that was legit or not, but it looked a little cringe-worthy. It was definitely cringe-worthy when he crashed on there.
Yeah, apparently it was. Apparently he screwed up his ACL, and he also tore his quad.
Oh God!
Horrible.
They've said that he's going to need surgery apparently, so could be looking at a bit of time off. In his WrestleMania debut, he gets hurt. That sucks. Best wishes to him.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's a shame, because I think he did a great job with the guitar and the entrance. I know, Jooseyboy, you get quite impatient with long entrances, but I really did like the entrance with the guitar. I thought that was really cool. He must have been so excited to finally be on WrestleMania, and then this happened. So thoughts go out to him. I don't have that many notes because it kind of ended so soon, and I was like, that was really weird, because I didn't know at the time what had happened, and I just thought, this seemed like a TV match, but now we know. Jooseyboy, what did you think, despite all of this, about the opening contest?
I actually thought that, to begin with, I sort of thought like this is nothing more than what you'd expect to see on an episode of SmackDown or something like that. A really well worked, but kind of, middle of the road match. As it went on though, I sort of started to feel like, there's some intensity and some passion on the parts of both of these teams. They clearly knew that they were at WrestleMania. They as the match went on, I really felt like they did manage to kick it back up into that second gear, as they like to say. And I think that Mr. Boogs unfortunately getting hurt, that probably, I'm not a wrestler, but I assume that must put a spanner in the works, as it were. I think that probably interrupted the flow of the match that they had going at that point. But I think they all did a nice job, they being the Usos and Shinsuke Nakamura, in kind of recovering it, pulling the tail up, sticking that landing. I thought the finish was impactful. I thought it was a good statement for the tag champs to make, nice strong win for them. I'd probably give it a C+, pretty decent.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to put a bow on this injury that took place here by asking you, Jet. Your experience, you've been in the ring. Do you think that injury took place because one of the Usos hopped up onto his brother, and it would have probably been better if he was maybe already on the top turnbuckle and just kind of was placed on there without Rick having to actually crouch down and squat to try and to pull him up?
Yeah, it was a very uncomfortable looking spot. Even when he jumped up, it was kind of like he just jumped up into it. I mean, the announcers covered it up well. He just jumped up on there to lose the balance, come down, and it wasn't good. You could see Shinsuke. You can just see the look on his face, oh no, here I am. I'm on my own here. Whatever plans we had are scrapped, and seems like they did a good job with it going from there, having the one man down. But yeah, when things like that happen, it's just what next? And they covered it up well and had a pretty good finish.
Yep, excellent stuff. Okay, guys, let's move forward. This is probably the match that I was least excited for on the card. Drew McIntyre, who I'm a fan of, against Happy Corbin, who I believe can be doing good things. I don't like the gimmick. That's just me. But this feud's been going for a while, and I suppose this would be the blow off for that feud. Juicy Boy, I'm going to throw it to you first. What did you think of McIntyre versus Corbin?
Well, I have to say, it ended up kind of being exactly what I expected it to be, because I knew as soon as this match got announced, everyone that thinks that Drew McIntyre should still be the top guy in the company at this point, a couple of years on from his initial ascension against Brock Lesnar, they were always going to be pissed off that Drew McIntyre is in this match against Happy Corbin, Baron Corbin at WrestleMania. Just like people were pissed off that Kurt Angle's retirement match ended up being against Baron Corbin, because that was who he was feuding with at the time that he decided he was ready to retire. I think it's always been a disservice to Baron Corbin as a performer. I think he's actually a very good athlete. I think he's got great size. I think he has a good instinct for knowing, okay, this is going to piss the crowd off, and he's someone that has the confidence and the panache to piss the crowd off without getting worried about, oh, is somebody going to throw a brick at my car? I think he's the kind of guy that if someone threw a brick at his car, he'd probably get out of the car and kick their ass. So he's a good heel in that sense, that he's actually not afraid to have every single person in that arena hate him. And that's something that's missing from a lot of bad guys, heels in the wrestling industry today, in my opinion. And I actually thought that this turned into a very good match. I thought Drew McIntyre's dive over the top that he only busts out on the special occasions, I thought that was tremendous. I thought Happy Corbin and Riddick Moss both played off of each other really well. They kind of seem to feed off of each other. They're setting the stage for the split between the two of them as a team. And I think we could be seeing that as soon as the next episode of SmackDown, because you automatically have a built-in thing for Happy Corbin to blame in Riddick Moss. He can point to Riddick Moss and say, you're the reason I lost this match, which kind of protects him a little bit, because as we also know, this match was the first time anyone had ever kicked out of End of Days. Drew McIntyre, first person to kick out of Happy Corbin's protected finisher. That, along with the brogue kick, are actually the two most protected finishes in the WWE. This was the first time anyone had kicked out of it. I don't know if this was the right time or not to play that card of finally having somebody kick out of the End of Days maneuver. However, I'm glad that it was at least a former WWE champion. The first person to kick out of that move after all this time was a guy that's also on the record books as having beaten Brock Lesnar for the WWE title. So it's not like a slouch kicked out of his finishing move, because I've already seen a bunch of people complaining that, oh, they've ruined the finisher by having Drew McIntyre kick out of it. Fuck you. All right. It went like 3 years. It went for years without being kicked out of. Maybe this was the right time. Maybe it wasn't. But I actually thought the match turned out quite good. I'm giving this one a C+ too, because this really pulled me into it by the end.
Very good, bro. Very good. Yes. I had no problem with the kick out of the finisher, because, it feels like a lot of times these days, a lot of pro wrestlers like to use their finisher being kicked out of as a false finish when it's not necessarily something that you need to do every single time. So good for him that he held on to it this long and felt that this was an important enough situation to do that. Jet Jaguar, your thoughts on McIntyre and Corbin?
Going in, I was just like, we've seen this 100 times. It's just going to be blah, blah, blah. He's going to win. And actually, I thought it was a pretty entertaining match. It turned out pretty well for what it's worth. It got Drew over, kind of getting him ready for his next big step. And I do like the possible interaction to come with Madcap and Corbin. I really like Madcap. If they could make the Madcap and make him like crazy, insane, instead of this stupid all the time, they need to get rid of that, because it's really annoying and stupid. But if they made him like a crazy guy, like some kind of lunatic, that sort of a Madcap, that'd be cool. But it looks like they're getting ready to push him to the moon by the looks of it.
Yep, very cool. I guess I didn't really have that many thoughts. Because I was bored early on, but that's because my pre-existing feeling about the match was affecting how I was going into the match. So
almost
hard to get by.
It happened a lot. It happened at NXT as well. I don't like multi-man ladder matches because I kind of feel like at this point they're not done, they're not performed correctly. But then they got me into it, and this is kind of what happened here. They got me into it. And, you know, I was complaining to myself in my notes saying, you know, I used to be on the edge of my seat for the whole of a WrestleMania, and now I'm kind of like, oh, they plod along so slowly throughout the show, but also there are matches that just don't get me invested. But props to the guys for getting me invested after some of the stuff that they did, especially with that great dive to the outside. And Drew wins, very cool. But I thought to myself when he cut the ropes with his sword, I thought to myself that was very unprofessional and he should be fined for damaging the ring and the property during a WrestleMania. I mean, if this were real, he'd be in a lot of trouble, don't you think, guys?
I think so, probably. Yeah.
It was a cool looking thing to happen, just kind of like when the ring exploded. You know, it really wasn't necessary, but at least it's something that was done that hasn't been done to death. So
yeah, that's a good
something
call.
they can replay that clip over and over again, you know, and anything to do with WrestleMania or anything to do with Drew McIntyre, you know, ad nauseum. Now we're gonna see that clip.
You know, I hate to say it this way, but that's kind of almost like the WrestleMania moment for those guys in that match. That's like you said, it's going to be played over and over and over.
Yeah.
Okay, moving forward, guys, we get to a tag team contest here, which was another one. At first I was like, but this was pretty close to being my favorite thing that happened on the show. Somehow, some way, it was the Mysterios taking on The Miz and Logan Paul. I'll just run through my notes quickly before throwing it to you guys. At first, I thought to myself, you know, gosh, I wonder what some of those guys in the locker room, how they feel about Dominic being able to be on a WrestleMania card, and some of them may not have even been on one yet. You know, it is what it is. I'm sure it means a lot to Ray. So I don't have a problem with it, but it was just a thought that came into my mind. Corey Graves, again, showing me on commentary that he isn't clever or funny. I thought Dominic did actually really good here because I saw him on NXT a few weeks ago. I can't remember who he wrestled. I think it was one of Santos Escobar's henchmen, but he was a bit disjointed in that match. Something just didn't go right. And I thought to myself, he needs a lot of work, but I thought he did very good in this one. And then all of a sudden, boys, Logan really, really impressed me. I couldn't believe it. When he hit that running power slam, I was like, that was pretty good. Then the blockbuster, fantastic. I was really into it. And you and I, Juicy Boy, we were watching it together. We were laughing our asses off at some of this stuff that was going on because we were just so highly entertained by it. Logan was just popping the shit out of me. Especially when he's ripping off Eddie Guerrero and he's on the top rope and he hits a fantastic frog splash. How the fuck is a celebrity doing such a good job? And I use, you know, celebrity's a bit of a stretch, but, you know, influencer, whatever you want to call him. I loved me and Juicy Boy. Again, we laughed so hard over the Miz scoop slamming Dominic onto Ray's head during the pinfall attempt.
Like he could have scoop slammed him onto fucking Ray's back and it still would have broken up the pin. But for some reason he had to do the most like painful, uncomfortable, like, you know, brutal version of that attempt to break up the pin and slam him full force onto his dad's head, which in itself is a funny sentence to say.
Man, I couldn't believe that Logan and Miz won this one. Oh, I laughed so hard then that my glasses fogged up. And then Miz turns on Logan Paul, and me and you were laughing again. Like, what the fuck? What is going on here?
Like, dude, the disgust on Miz's face. Like, he's gone from being in love with Logan Paul and being so excited that he gets to piggyback off Logan Paul's celebrity status to instantly despising him beyond all measure. As soon as he's gotten what he needs out of Logan, he just turns on him. That's a great heel persona right there.
Yeah, it's things like that that I kind of miss about professional wrestling. So I think that's why I loved it so much. Jet Jaguar, what did you think of this tag team?
In the middle of recording.
This was one of those ones that I thought was just again be like, brother, so-called celebrity in the match, but he blew me away. I was way impressed, and I'm kind of mad that I have to say that because it's annoying, but he looked great in there, and pairing him off with Miz, that kind of keeps them off. He keeps them doing their thing on their side, and they can do their thing, and everybody else can do their thing. But for what it was worth, it was great. It was a good turn. Miz, as much as you may or may not like him, he makes everybody around him shine. So putting him with him now going forward, that would make sense.
Yep, absolutely. Juicy Boy, anything else to add on Mysterios against the Miz and Logan Paul?
Yeah, I think first of all I want to add, I think this is the best performance from Dominic Mysterio that I've seen so far. I thought that he really kind of brought it, to use a phrase. This being WrestleMania, I think that you could see that this was a big moment for Dominic and Ray as father and son. I definitely think that Ray's fingerprints were all over this match as far as like leading it, booking it, putting it together. The references to Eddie Guerrero, the history that Mysterio and Dominic both have with him, Eddie Guerrero being from El Paso and this is in Dallas, all those pieces fit. Logan Paul is a born heel. I can picture the people in the production truck going, well, goddamn, we've got to give him a contract immediately. I can picture them making a play for him on a more permanent basis, trying to lock him down. I don't know how much of it is his natural ability in the ring and how much of it was just the world-class training facilities that, Logan Paul would have had at his disposal. But he certainly rose to the occasion for this particular match. He looked in shape. He looks like more of a wrestler than 2/3 of the AEW roster. I'll put it that way. He actually looked like an athlete that belonged in there. Which is more than you
can't get through a review without bagging him, can we?
Well, I'm sorry, but half of them are like 5'7" and 120 pounds. So,
Deary me, bro. But yes, okay. Very astute points there about Logan. I don't think they'll sign him because I don't think it won't be special anymore. Was it special in the first place? I don't know. But I thought his performance was special on this show. Let's move forward. The always unwelcome Stephanie McMahon Helmsley came out to introduce Mr. Gable Steveson. And the only note that I wrote was, wow, that was it. I understand introducing him, but I just felt like, is there no one backstage that could have thought of maybe some sort of angle that could have taken place that would lead to something going forward in the future? Him just coming out and posing for the fans. I felt like if this were 20 years ago, something would have happened. Something would have happened that would have been interesting. Jet Jaguar, what did you think of that?
I thought it was a good time to go grab another beer and use the men's room, and then I came back and continued watching.
Juicy Boy, anything to add?
Yeah, just quickly, I want to say, like, I personally, because I'm a big fan of performers in pro wrestling that actually have that amateur wrestling background. And here in Gable Steveson, we have a guy that's obviously highly skilled and accomplished in that field. But then after all these weeks of, putting up the little graphics saying Gable Stevenson's coming to Raw, Olympic gold medalist, national wrestling champion, Gable Steveson. And then all they did was bring him out and have him wave and say nothing. You know, if I'm them, I would have had Chad Gable come out in his
there you go.
His little academic gear and say, like, look, tomorrow night, me and my partner are going to win the Raw tag team titles or retain them or whatever. I don't even know who the champions are, but tomorrow night, me and Otis, we're going to take out the tag team title match. But right here, right now, I'm here to tell you, Gable Steveson, I'm the most accomplished amateur wrestler in this company on this roster. And then you could have had Gable Steveson slap the shit out of him, and boom, you've immediately got a reason for Gable Steveson to be there on that show. As it was, though, we didn't get anything like that. We just had Stephanie McMahon coming out there, having to have a little moment, you know, pretending that she's on the same level as her dad or her husband, you know, and introducing him to basically no pop or audience reaction. So, yeah, D-, unfortunately.
Well said on that, DJ. I think that's exactly how they should have handled it. Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that one.
As soon as you said it, it's like the idea is right there in front of you. And DJ, that didn't take you're not a rocket scientist. You thought of that.
No,
just
definitely
then.
not. Yeah.
You thought of that just then.
Maybe if they had another 2 hours pre-show, maybe you could have stuck it in somewhere else.
2 hours. Yeah, if they wanted to squeeze it in real quick, another 2 hours, you know, that would have been good.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched the Hall of Fame. It was 2.5 hours long, and there were only 5 people being inducted. It was insane. Although Undertaker's speech was quite good. All right, guys, moving forward, this was one of the big highlights of the show for me personally. Raw Women's Championship. Becky Lynch defends against Bianca Belair. I'm going to throw this to Jet Jaguar to start off with. What did you think of this matchup?
It was good. Those girls are so solid that are in the main spots. It's scary how good they are. Bianca Belair and Becky. It was a good match. It was hot and it was good. Yeah, it was a really good match.
Jooseyboy, thoughts?
I thought that this was once again tremendous. I mean, the past 12 months, we have seen some of the best women's wrestling, but I think some of the best wrestling, period, that's taken place within the last 5 or 10 years for some of these matches. And this is an example of another fantastic, stellar women's wrestling match. I thought, just like last year when Bianca Belair main evented night 1 against Sasha Banks and absolutely stole the show with her charisma and her power and her connection with the audience. And people, I think, when the audience watches her perform, they get the sense that they can walk up to her and say hello, and she'd probably be nice to him and probably chat to him. You get this, she radiates this warmth and you know, kind of kindness that I think people relate to with her playing the babyface. But then you combine that with her freakish athleticism and her, you know, that $1 million smile she has, and, you know, then you've got a little bit of the novelty and the length of her hair and all that different stuff. All these things put together, you know, can go towards making a very solid talent. But it's that X factor that Bianca Belair also possesses, that undefinable it factor that make her as good as she is. I felt like that was on full display. I feel like every time she does one of them big powerhouse moves, she's in control. She doesn't get flustered in those big moments. When those big moments happen and it's time to rise to the occasion, she does it, she pulls it off, she gets it done. I think at this point, we've seen enough from her that the company knows they can count on her in those moments. And I also want to say, I mean, I've known for a long time now how talented Becky Lynch is, but I think that this was the best match I've ever seen Becky Lynch have. I think that she thrived in this role as the heel in this match. I think that this was physical and intense, and I'm going to rate it A-. I absolutely loved it.
Excellent.
I like I like where they may be going with Becky as the heel now and the new look and the kind of crazy look about her. So it might be interesting to see where they go with that character now.
So I suppose I'll throw my thoughts here on the Lynch Belair match, because you know what, I'm a big fan of Bianca, because I remember when I first saw her perform, I was like, I've never seen an athlete like this before with what she can do. I'm always so impressed with what she can do. She kind of reminds me of when I first saw Park wrestle. I was like, this guy is a freak athlete, that's for sure. So this was a great match. You know, Bianca 2 years in a row now has really killed it at WrestleMania, and you know, props to Becky as well. I thought this was just fantastic. They got me close with that that rock bottom earlier in the match. But then after that, I was like, that's so stupid of me to think that the match could have been over so soon. It was just very ferocious early on, back and forth. I wasn't writing many notes because I was just actually getting into the match and not thinking about it. The 450 off the second rope was incredibly impressive. I just can't believe she can do all this shit. The only nitpick is that I hate when Becky Lynch acts all stressed out that she can't get the pinfall, and she's like, I don't know why. It just annoys me. But she was set up for that whatever that maneuver is called. It's like the burning hammer, sit down burning hammer. It's got a name, but I can't remember. The desperation of her grabbing onto the rope was awesome, but I just thought this built very well, and the finish was fantastic. Bianca wins. Great match. Let's move forward. Okay. We have the next...
On a side note, there's a rumor out there that Bianca Belair stole her hair gimmick from me. That is totally false and not true. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Glad that we could clear that up, bro.
No problem.
So on the show, we had the next thing taking place with this fucking choir coming out, which there was a marching band before. Now there's a choir. This really is WrestleMania. It's Seth Rollins taking on a mystery opponent, which happened to be the one and only Cody Rhodes. Jooseyboy, I'm going to throw it to you first. What did you think of Cody in his return to the WWE as he did battle with one Seth Rollins?
This is the best match Cody Rhodes has had in at least the last 4 years of his career. I mean, no, to be honest with you, Cody Rhodes is the kind of wrestler that has never really had a bad match. He just, as far as physically speaking, the stuff that he does in the ring, the timing, the pacing, the footwork, the explosiveness, it's all there. However, from a creative, promotional, booking standpoint, I have felt very much like the inmate is running the asylum when it's come to Cody Rhodes and his work in AEW. And I think that the overindulgence of his own self-gratification in AEW has led to him becoming tedious and led to the dispassionate reception that the fans over there were giving him. It didn't really matter how good a match that he had in the ring actually might have been, because it just oozed, the self-importance was oozing off of Cody in AEW, even though he was meant to be a babyface, not a heel. The self-importance was oozing off of his wife in AEW, even though she's not really a big star, certainly not on the level of him. Yet we're all supposed to treat her and see her in that way. And yet when Daniel Bryan started tagging up with Brie Bella on WWE TV, everyone jumped down Brie Bella's throat for trying to piggyback off her husband's popularity. But in AEW, when Brandy Rhodes blatantly does the same thing, it's suddenly okay because it's AEW. All this is to say, gentlemen, that as soon as Cody Rhodes showed back up in this environment where he's being told what to do and going out there and executing it, we saw that world-class performer that Cody Rhodes is come back out in that ring at WrestleMania against Seth Rollins. And I don't mean to crap on AEW. The reason why I use them as a negative comparison point is because the potential in AEW is limitless. Cody Rhodes was an example of that limitless potential, an example of what AEW could be to the industry. And he's also a textbook example of what AEW has done wrong since the very beginning. And this match against Seth Rollins here at WrestleMania for the WWE was the counterpoint to everything I've just been talking about. Cody looked invigorated. He looked like he was on top of his game. Everything was completely crisp, completely smooth, timed to perfection. You could tell that the guys were feeding off of the energy of the crowd. They weren't just reciting a bunch of pre-rehearsed choreography that was going to be the same regardless of how the crowd was reacting to it. And so even though, yes, you could argue that this match was kind of a little bit more indie style than a lot of WWE matches, it was all still done in a way which was logical and which was, how do I put this? Which one could conceivably see how that would lead to the match being won if this was a real legitimate combat sport. So for that reason, I'm giving this match a B+. I thought it was tremendous, and it has reinvigorated some of my fandom for Cody Rhodes, which had waned over the past couple of years.
Excellent, bro. Jet Jaguar, your thoughts on Cody versus Rollins?
This was easily my favorite match of the show. The energy and the excitement that kind of came with it was kind of one of those ones that like you're just kind of wowed by. And they were able to kind of, like DJ had said, kind of use the crowd and kind of feel them out without rushing into things and taking it step by step. They told a great story. The entrance and just like, it's not too often, very rare. Well, actually, when can you think of the last time on WWE television that there was a surprise from somebody from somewhere big? That hasn't happened in years, and that was pretty big. They did it well. The match was super crisp. Easily my favorite on the show, and good to see Cody afterwards in the interview. He still put over his past and where he's been without really getting into it, but there was no bashing. Everything was done in a cool way, so it was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, very classy on his behalf. And look, there's no secret. It's not a secret out there at all that I've been very critical of his the angles that he came up with for himself in AEW. Things he would say in interviews, tweets he would put out saying things like, "My music is my music, and I am incapable of being given direction," and things like that. And I used to get mad at him because I'm like, bro, you're not John Lennon. You're not the John Lennon of pro wrestling. You got to stop with the way that you're talking, because this arrogance is oozing out of you. And I kind of feel like maybe he's finally come a little bit back down to earth, because the Cody that I saw here was like the Cody of old that I remember, but even better in the ring than he was before. And like I could feel my dislike for him wash away, which is something that I never thought I'd say, because I've been so disgusted isn't the word, but I've just been so displeased with him. Some of his promos where he starts crying, and he's trying to solve racism and things of this nature, and just doing things like a weigh-in with Anthony Ogogo for a match that has no weight restrictions.
It's all a bit rich and self-flatulating, like.
That's it. Look, the AEW fans had been shitting on him for quite some time, and I called it. I fucking called it. I said he comes across too much like a heel. The arrogance of having this Rhodes to the Top a TV show as well, the reality show and all that stuff. I just felt like at some point they're going to turn on him. I can feel it, and it happened. But it was great to see that the WWE fans were cheering him. And a lot of those marks out there that had been booing him must have either not been there or had decided that this was such a great moment that, it didn't feel like the right time to be booing him. I just feel like that this was bigger than anything that he had done in AEW, despite his great match that he had with his brother over there. It must have felt good for him. That suplex over the ropes to the outside, shit, that was a hard landing. There was a gut buster in the match, and I think I said to you, DJ, or you said to me, Tony Khan is probably experiencing a gut buster right now.
That's I said. I bet you Tony's guts busting watching this.
That's it. Yeah. Seth going over the announce table from the dive was awesome. I was just happy seeing it. And I wrote the best version of Cody Rhodes since Stardust. Another knock on AEW. I'm sorry, everyone out there. I can't help myself sometimes. The reverse suplex off the top rope was fucked. That was insane. Great match. Nice work with the pedigree for a false finish, but a great finish to the match. Over and done with. Very happy with it. Definitely one of the high points of the show. Let's move forward, guys. It's time for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Another matchup that a lot of people were a bit iffy about, a bit unsure about, because, you know, Ronda Rousey has been, I don't know, some of the reaction to her return hasn't been very positive with some of the, you know, marks out there. I like Ronda. So, you know, I had no problem with this. Charlotte Flair defends it against Ronda Rousey. I'm going to throw this to the one and only Jet Jaguar. What did you think of the second women's championship match on the show?
I thought it was a really good, solid match. One of the things I was glad to see is they put Flair over. Not like Flair needed to go over, but I don't know. I get the feel from Ronda Rousey. Like, she's great in there, what she does. But she reminds me kind of like back in the day, Brock Lesnar. Like, he was just doing this for the money. He didn't even care about it. He wasn't having fun. He was just there to do it. He did it well. I don't get that feel from her. Like, now you see Brock Lesnar, he has this newfound energy and, you know, changed his character, and it seems like he really wants to be there. I still don't get that feeling from Ronda Rousey. Mm-hmm. So she had a great match with Flair. She put Flair over, but I was glad to see it that Flair won, even though she's won a million matches and didn't need it. But I don't know, I could just see Ronda Rousey going away tomorrow and then coming back next year at this time, you know, blah blah blah. So good match. That's my thoughts on that one.
Oh, bro. Yeah, before I throw it to you, Juicy Boy, I'll just run through mine because I actually forgot to write a lot of notes because I was pretty glued into this one. It was a good start to the match. I just really loved how physical it was, and I was just into it the whole way through. There was great drama. I just couldn't tell who was going to win, and that's always a nice feeling when you watch a Drew McIntyre Happy Corbin match. It's a foregone conclusion, which I'm usually quite critical of. When you know ahead of time that you look at a card and you can tell who's going to win. Nice to not feel that way for this one. Love the ref bump. I can't believe Charles Robinson. He drinks from the fountain of youth, that man. He looks the same.
I thought the same exact thing, honestly, last night. The same exact thing.
He looks the exact same as he did, 23, 24 years ago. Charlotte wins. I was happy with her getting the victory because I think Ronda just needed to just lose one here, even if it was a dirty finish. I think it builds to the future and what can happen coming in the next few months if it does happen. I'm sure it will. Juicy Boy, your thoughts on the SmackDown Women's Championship match?
I have to say I pretty much agree with Jet's analysis on Ronda Rousey. I think going into this match, I was thinking Ronda has not been the same kind of performer with the same kind of cachet as she had when she was on TV the first time around. I thought that she did tremendous given her relative lack of experience in the business at that time, especially the mixed tag match with Kurt Angle versus Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. I thought that she knocked it out of the park in that performance. But when she came back for this run, I felt like her negative relationship with the hardcore wrestling fan base, because she's made comments publicly saying that she basically thinks those people are a bunch of nerds and she doesn't care what they think, which that's absolutely how she should feel. However, since they're trying to present her as a baby face, it doesn't work when you know that when she herself as a human being is quite willing to actually go out there outside of wrestling and say like, oh, I just think the wrestling fans are kind of nerdy and, you know, I don't really, you know, because she's had some friction between her and the fan base. So I think that disdain kind of oozes off of her a little bit. However, I also agree with Jet in the sense that I thought this match knocked it out of the park. I think that Ronda, every time she gets stuck into a high pressure situation like this, she delivers. I liked that this match was a submission-based affair and was a trade of holds. I liked that this match was physical and felt like an actual fight between two athletes that both think that they're the best at their respective games, and both wanted to prove that they were the best and deserved to be the champion. I liked the fact that the finish kept Ronda looking strong, because if Ronda hadn't have been distracted by the ref bump, then it's quite arguable that she would have easily won the match, because we saw Charlotte tap out to the armbar while the ref was down. So they've done a great job in putting Charlotte over strongly, but also not diminishing the value that they can still get out of Ronda Rousey going forward. I believe that Ronda Rousey, as beautiful of a smile as she has and as much equity as she has as a personality, I think she needs to turn heel. I think that they need to allow her to embrace the friction that she has with some of the fan base. And I think that in doing that, it'll eventually have the same effect that it had with Roman Reigns, where it'll turn people back into favoring her again after they see some of the great work that she can do as a heel, feeding off of her real life feeling towards the wrestling community. So I'm going to give the match itself a B+. You know, I thought it was pretty good. Physical affair, as I said, but I agree with Jet. It doesn't really look like Ronda wants to be there, and it really comes across like she's just doing it for the paycheck.
Yeah, maybe if she did turn heel, she might start having a lot of fun and it might change her tune. Who knows? Let's get to this. The main event of the evening, which we thought was going to be the KO show with Kevin Owens and his guest, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Mm-hmm.
It turned into an actual match, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I was so invested in this because, Jesus Christ, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. One of the reasons I became a wrestling fan. One of the reasons a lot of big people became wrestling fans. Jet Jaguar, I want to throw it to you first. What did you think of the main event of the evening?
I think Steve Austin's drinking that same stuff that Charles Robinson is drinking, because he looked phenomenal. He looked young, he looked in shape. And the buzz that he brings, it's, you know, we haven't really seen much of that, like, excitement, that energy. There was a lot of it in the show yesterday, but the main event, like, wow, that was, Kevin Owens couldn't be a better guy for him to do it with, and deserves his spot that he got. And it brought me back to, you know, like my youth when I was watching them. Like, what turned you on to Steve Austin? He's out there just kicking ass and drinking beers and raising hell. And it's been a long time since anybody saw that. And it just seemed like everybody was just so happy to embrace that feel. And yeah, it's a good thing they let that go on last, because if not, the other matches would have been a disaster after following that match.
Absolutely. It's exactly how I felt. It was like, I missed this. Even just seeing like the back and forth punches. I miss seeing that back and forth that Austin used to have with whoever, Undertaker, Rock, Triple H. I love that. Jooseyboy, your thoughts on Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Kevin Owens?
I first of all, I want to point out that Kevin Owens, what a tremendous talent on the mic and in the ring. He's the perfect opponent to put against Stone Cold in this situation, from a physical standpoint and from a mic work point of view. I found myself kind of left a bit reeling from the fact that it actually turned into a match. I liked the way that they did it, though, because they left themselves wiggle room dependent on what Stone Cold was in condition to do best when we got to the day of Mania. They'd left themselves enough of an opening that they could have pivoted away from doing a match if Austin wasn't quite in condition to do it, or they could have, gone more fully with it the other way and promoted it as a match, which then would have set people's expectations through the roof.
Yeah.
So they kind of played both sides against the middle here and sort of didn't really do either of those things. They clarified that it was going to be more than just a talk show segment that ends with a beer chug and a stunner, but they also didn't go as far as saying, we're going to see Stone Cold put on the black trunks and, have another match for the first time in 20 years. And by kind of keeping it in the middle, they had the advantage of being able to sell Stone Cold being at WrestleMania in Texas, doing something on the big stage, but they also didn't have to put the pressure on Stone Cold to wind back the clock 20 years if it had turned out that he wasn't able to do that, which in turn probably allowed him the creative freedom to embrace what he was doing and really have a lot of fun with it, rather than feel like, oh shit, I've got to live up to the last match I had against The Rock at WrestleMania 19 20 years ago. So I think that with that happy medium that they found in between, they managed to, in a way, kind of have a brand new retirement match for Stone Cold Steve Austin without having one at the same time. I think when the match first began, it sort of looked like a legend that was doing his greatest hits, with the audience kind of politely, showing the respect to that legend. But as the physical part of the confrontation wore on, you could literally see Austin's body language. You could see him start to loosen up and get more comfortable after they did a few things physically in the match. You could see him loosen up and start to get that mojo back about him. And by the end of the match, it was like I was watching a pay-per-view main event from 2001,
Yeah.
So I feel like, props to Kevin Owens as well for kind of bumping around like a pinball, making sure that everything Austin did have the impact to it. And even though Austin himself only took about 4 or 5 bumps, he made up for perhaps not going as balls to the wall with the bumps, but he made up for that with his selling and his overall psychology, which I thought was just tremendous. I think that people that weren't around for Stone Cold, like the peak of Stone Cold's success, this is probably the first time that they've ever actually understood what people are talking about when they tell you that Stone Cold used to be the biggest star on the planet when it came to professional wrestling. I think that the reaction and the energy in that arena that was generated by Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania is something that eclipses any reaction that John Cena's had so far. It eclipses the reactions that Brock Lesnar gets. It eclipsed the reactions that The Rock got the last time he came back at WrestleMania. Stone Cold, when it comes to the arena of professional wrestling, is simply in another stratosphere. And I think people that might not have even been born when Stone Cold had his last match were still able to feel that energy and feed off of it. I'm going to give this segment / match a A-, because I thought that it matched what I wanted to see, what I hoped to see as a fan. I got that, but it also exceeded what I expected to see, because I didn't set my expectations too high going into it.
Excellent, bro. Excellent. Yeah. Dude, the energy, the crowd, the electricity in the air. I miss the atmosphere and the electricity when watching professional wrestling. Yeah, sometimes you get it here and there when a special moment takes place, like, I don't know, like how I felt seeing like CM Punk return. I felt something when that happened. And right here with Stone Cold, I felt something, the electricity, the atmosphere again. And you're right, bro, Juicy Boy. As the match wore on, He started to loosen up because at first, like, some of those punches were a bit slower than before. The stomps were a bit slower than before. But then he kicked into that next gear, and it's like, okay, he's back. He's back. It was like having Michael Jordan make his return and win the NBA championship again, as far as I'm concerned. That's the comparison I'm going to make there. So it sent me happy. I'm just absolutely thrilled. And you know, it's the first time that I've seen a WrestleMania in several years where I really felt pretty happy after the show, despite the plodding along. Thankfully, we didn't watch it live, Jooseyboy, so we could skip all the stuff in between matches. But yeah, I'm really happy. So that brings us toward the end here of the review. Some final thoughts and a rating out of 10. I'm going to go with you first, Jooseyboy, before throwing it to our special guest. Fire away.
Yeah, final thoughts. I think that considering that out of the two nights, with the exception of Stone Cold's involvement, a lot of people, myself included, admittedly, because I am a fan, I have my own personal tastes, I was pegging night one as being the weaker of the two nights. And the fact that I still think it's going to turn out to be the weaker of the two nights, yet I thought it was such a great show, I think is a great sign for this year's WrestleMania. I thought it was tremendous. Overall, I'm giving it a B+ for WrestleMania Saturday. I really enjoyed it.
I said a rating out of 10, dickhead. Thank you.
Sorry, rating out of 10. You're right, fuckface. You know, B+. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Jet Jaguar, your thoughts and final rating out of 10.
It was a good show. The only thing I think that it could have been better is if they had the pre-show go for about 6 hours, but that didn't happen. The energy in the crowd, it was unbelievable. I'm going to go with Seth and Cody as the best match. But the feel with the Kevin and Owens and Austin was unbelievable. I'm going to go on a sandwich meter of 8 sandwiches out of 10 for this card.
Very nice, bro. Very nice. And I was thinking of giving this one an 8 out of 10. Just some good stuff. A couple of things that that could have been better, but some things that couldn't be helped, like injuries and all that. But walking away pretty happy. And I thought to myself, oh, I'm actually happy with WrestleMania's 2 days, and I get to go through it all again tomorrow. So
yeah, we'll see how you feel after tomorrow's show.
I personally definitely didn't see this show being as good as it was. I definitely thought it was going to be just bleh, but it couldn't have been. I couldn't be more wrong, as the rest of us, I think, felt the same way.
Yeah, excellent, bro. Well, Jet Jaguar, I want to thank you for your time joining us to review the show. I know in the break that we had before, DJ was telling me how cool he thought you were, and you're just you're a very nice man, and we just appreciate your time. So thank you so much for joining us.
Not a pleasure. Enjoy your time, DJ. It was great meeting you. If you ever need somebody down the road to fill in or something, hit me up. I enjoy your time, the time with you guys. It was good. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Excellent, bro. Well, I will definitely hit you up in future. And Jooseyboy, thank you for joining me as well, you little motherfucker.
Yeah, no worries, you fucking dickhole.
Well, there we have it, everyone. That was the WrestleMania 38 Day 1 review. I'm Karlifornia Haguesly. This is Jooseyboy. This is our homie, Jet Jaguar. And we will see you down the fucking road. Thank you.
Network, that's the way we play. Good God Almighty. Network, that's the way we play. Get puppies. Network, that's the way we play. Get.
The following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.